In a world that feels like it's constantly on the brink, with crises erupting from the Middle East to Eastern Europe, we've all been trained to expect one thing: oil prices going through the roof. But what if I told you that fundamental rule of economics is completely, totally broken? Right now, the world is practically drowning in cheap oil, and the reasons why are going to change how you look at the entire global economy.
I mean, just think about it for a second. It's a fact that it defies all logic. Despite a whole decade of escalating global tension, crude oil is actually cheaper today than it was back in 2014. How is that even possible? Well, that's the central mystery we're going to solve together right now.
This really captures the bizarre shift we're seeing. The old rule was simple, predictable. Trouble in an oil-producing region meant you paid more at the pump. End of story. But today, with crises happening everywhere you look, that link has been completely shattered. We're living in a brand new reality, one that's way more complex and, as we're about to find out, maybe a lot more dangerous. So let's be absolutely clear. This isn't just some small market dip we're talking about. We are looking at a truly abnormal puzzle, and figuring it out is absolutely crucial if we want to understand what's coming next for the global economy. To really get this puzzle, you have to look at the sheer chaos of the last few years. I mean, do you remember when the pandemic hit and oil prices incredibly went negative? Producers were literally paying people to take oil off their hands. Then, boom, the war in Ukraine sends prices skyrocketing to an insane $140 a barrel. And now, they've just collapsed, settling in this range that makes no sense given all the headlines. And look, this isn't just something for Wall Street traders to worry about. The price of oil touches almost every part of our lives. It's the cost of filling up your car, sure, but it's also the cost of booking a flight. It's even the price of your phone, your pen. Pretty much anything made of plastic starts out as a barrel of oil. It's a huge driver of inflation and interest rates. You could say it's the hidden thread that ties the entire global economy together. Okay, so where do we even begin to unravel this thing? Well, our first clue, it lies with a group of unexpected new players who are absolutely flooding the market. And here's the first thing that's really worth noting. This isn't a problem of collapsing demand like we saw during the pandemic. No, this is all about supply. A massive, and I mean massive, surge of oil coming from places that are completely redrawing the world's energy map. Just try to get your head around the scale of this. The United States, which was an oil importer for 75 years, is now exporting up to 5 million barrels of oil every single day. Then you've got Guyana, a tiny country that produced zero oil just a few years back, is now pumping out nearly 1 million barrels a day. You add in record production from Brazil and Canada, and you start to see the picture. The market is just drowning in oil. But believe it or not, this flood of new oil is only part of the story. Our second clue involves the old guard, the traditional giants, OPEC+, and a really high-stakes gamble that has turned the whole market upside down. Now, faced with this onslaught of new oil from their competitors, you would expect OPEC+, led by Saudi Arabia and Russia, to cut their own production to keep prices high. That's what they've always done. It's the old playbook. Instead, they did the exact opposite. They shocked everyone by deciding to increase their output. They've completely flipped their strategy from protecting prices to fighting a brutal war for market share. So why on earth would they do this? Well, their long-term bet is to compromise. They're willing to accept these low oil prices and the pain it causes their own budgets because they're hoping that over time, it will drive all those other higher-cost producers right out of the market. It's a huge gamble to try and regain absolute control. By the way, if you're finding this analysis insightful, please take a quick second to like, share, and subscribe. That way you won't miss what's coming next, because we're about to uncover the final and maybe the most mysterious piece of this entire puzzle. All right, our third and final clue. This one takes us deep into the shadows of the global economy, to a hidden network that's having a truly massive impact on oil supply. Let me introduce you to the Dark Fleet. Think of it like a ghost navy. A huge network of aging, often totally uninsured tankers that operate completely outside the law. Their whole purpose is to transport sanctioned oil from countries like Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. And to do it, they fake the national flags, they repaint their names mid-voyage, and they just switch off their tracking systems to completely vanish from the map. And the scale of this operation, it's just staggering. This is not some fringe activity. The Dark Fleet now makes up an estimated 25%, a quarter, of the entire global oil tanker fleet.
So just picture this. 1 out of every 4 oil tankers on the ocean right now is part of this shadow economy, quietly dumping millions more barrels of sanctioned oil onto the world market every single day. So, we have our 3 clues: a flood of new oil, a high-stakes market share war from OPEC Plus, and this massive shadow fleet. Let's put them all together and see the full, shocking picture they create. You see, the truth is often hidden behind the numbers. And when you combine these 3 powerful forces, the new producers, OPEC's gamble, and the dark fleet, the result is something the world hasn't seen before: an unprecedented global surplus of oil. This isn't a small imbalance, folks. It's a glut of truly historic proportions. And here it is, the one number that defines this strange new reality. The International Energy Agency estimates that this year, the world is producing about 4 million more barrels of oil than it actually needs, every single day. That is a mind-boggling amount of extra oil just sloshing around the system with nowhere to go. And don't just take my word for it. One of the world's biggest independent oil traders, the Trafigura Group, recently sent out a stark warning, and I quote, "We're at risk of seeing a superglut. When the people who live and breathe this market are sounding the alarm, you know it's serious." But here's the dangerous twist. What looks like good news for us as consumers, cheaper gas, is actually hiding a massive looming crisis for the very nations who produce the oil. Their entire countries, their entire budgets, are built on a price of oil that simply doesn't exist anymore. The math here is just brutal. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Algeria, they need oil prices to be well over $100 a barrel just to balance their national budgets. With prices stuck down around $70 or $80, they are bleeding cash and facing enormous deficits. And this isn't just an economic problem. It is a recipe for serious geopolitical instability. And that leaves all of us with one final and really crucial question. This unexpected era of cheap oil puts a choice right in front of us. Does the low price at the pump tempt us to slow down, to delay the urgent transition to green energy, and just lock ourselves into the old habits? Or will we see this moment for what it is, an opportunity to accelerate that shift, recognizing that while the market might discount a barrel of oil, the climate cannot? The answer to that question is going to define the next decade.